section 4 is about how synapses work in a neuron cell. A little bit of the anatomy of a neuron that you should be familiar with. We already know that the action potential or the nerve impulse moves down the axon away from the cell body, but there's also a couple other words that you should be familiar with. When the cell moves in this diagram, moving towards the right, that signal, that impulse, moving towards the next cell past it. The cell in which the signal originates from is called the presynaptic cell. So then the action potential or signal moves towards the next cell, so that next cell is called the postsynaptic cell. The action potential is not transmitted from neurons to other cells. So how exactly do other cells respond when a message needs to be sent? So the answer is chemical synapses. So a chemical synapse is the release of chemicals by that presynaptic neuron to transfer information to a targeted cell. The chemicals are released by that presynaptic cell. And you can see, if you look at the picture, you can see that these chemicals are within vesicles and they will be released. One thing I should mention, it's on the next slide, these chemicals are called neurotransmitters. And when they're released from that presynaptic cell, it's going to diffuse across the synapse, across that space in between neuron cells. When they are released, they're going to bind to another neuron. They're going to bind to receptors on that other neuron. They're going to be releasing to or attached to muscle cells, also gland cells. They can be broken down by enzymes and then taken back into surrounding cells that way. And ultimately, they send their message because they are chemicals. So again, what are neurotransmitters? Neurotransmitters are the molecules that are released by the neuron, which is going to trigger a response. The signal depends upon the type of neurotransmitter chemical that's being released and the type of receptor in which it's able to bind to. Now, there's two general classifications or groupings of neurotransmitters. One type is excitatory, and these neurotransmitters speed up electrical impulses by causing depolarization of the postsynaptic membrane. To remind you what depolarization is, this is where sodium really goes in to the cell and across that membrane, changing the potential. Inhibitory is just the opposite. This slows down that impulse by causing hyperpolarization of postsynaptic membrane. So what is happening with hyperpolarization? Potassium is leaving the cell, again causing a change in potential. There are several major neurotransmitters that you should be briefly familiar with. Acetylcholine. There's several amino acids: glutamate, glycine, GABA or gamma aminobutyric acid, several type of amine molecules: norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin, neuropeptides, which you can see is a group of amino acids, and gases like nitric oxide.